Good afternoon. Hola. Welcome back. For those of you who were here yesterday, I'm going to talk now about how you can program and customize the search that is delivered with the Microsoft Office SharePoint server. My name is Patrick, and I work for a company called EU2U. Now, before we start, this is a dev conference, so we're not going to focus on administration tasks. Well, we're going to do some administration, but we're going to do code-driven administration. Yeah. So we're going to help administrators be a little bit more productive by writing helper tools for doing some of the administration tasks, as I will show you. We're not going to do any power user stuff like when we talk about customizing the search center, we actually are going to really customize it using custom search pages that we are going to programmatically provision, as you will see. And there will be also some XML and XSLT, of course, and this is a SharePoint talk, so we have to do some XML. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is a quick intro in the search and indexing architecture, so that you have a kind of an understanding of what the components are and how everything kind of internally is organized. And then we'll have a look at the search administration object model, which is a very new object model within MOS that allows you to do what administrators do within the shared services provider administration side. So the things that they do there, you can programmatically do that also. I'll show you some examples. Also use PowerShell to show you how you can create commandlets to automate certain tasks. Then we'll cover the search center, which is a new site definition that we have with MOS, customizing it, kind of adapting it to what the users are needing. And we also will do some execution and processing of search queries programmatically within web parts, within the Windows application. And we'll do this within the context of SharePoint. So we'll talk directly with the new classes that are available, but there's also web service you can communicate with. And then at the end, I'll show you how to build and deploy a custom security trimmer, which is an additional layer that you can kind of create that filters the search results before they are shown in the browser. So this is the index and search architecture. So what you have is pretty much two core components. You have the index engine and you have the search engine. And search within MOS is actually delivered as a shared service. So you're going to have a shared service provider running within your server farm, which is going to be responsible for maintaining and creating an index file. And there's one index file per shared service provider. And if you install MOS and the shared services, you also get a couple of extra databases that are going to be populated with the configuration settings that you are going to make within the search environment. But also, there's a lot of information that is gathered when the crawler is going to do its work. Yeah. So, for example, as I will show you, your metadata that is available within SharePoint is going to be crawled, and you can expose this as managed properties within the search environment. So SharePoint can basically index anything you want. Yeah. Out of the box, there are a couple of protocol handlers that are available. Protocol handlers that allow us to connect to normal web HTTP sites, SharePoint sites. You have protocol handlers that can go into the user profiles and index the data there. You have, as I will show you, the possibility to let the crawler index all of your business data, like data that's coming from or sitting in Microsoft CRM or SAP, and you can use the business data catalog to connect to that data and then have this index engine kind of crawling all of that data. I'll show you that. And if you do a post-installation step, kind of go through a wizard, you can also index Lotus Notes databases. But you see the three dots. So actually, you can index whatever you want. Either you build a protocol handler yourself, which is not an easy task, or you go and shop around. And there are companies that are specialized in creating protocol handlers. Actually, I'm writing a new book on all of this together with Lars from Ontolica Search, and one of the chapters that we're going to include is how to write protocol handlers and ifilters. Ifilters are needed to have the index engine go into the resource that you want to get indexed. For example, an Office document, or a text file, or a zip file. And out of the box, you have a couple of ifilters again that are available. But if you shop around again, you will be able to go and download the Adobe ifilter, for example, install it. It's a very easy installation. Include PDF as file type, and then it will be recognized by the crawler. So once you have everything in place, what you can do is you can let people go to specific places where they can enter a query. And as we will see, you have two ways of creating a query. You have the keyword query syntax, and then you have the full SQL syntax. But there are a couple of places they can go to. A new place is the Search Center. There are two flavors of the Search Center. You have one with tabs, and then you have a Search Center Lite, as I will show you. And also within the SharePoint sites, they will be able to use web parts to enter their query and then kind of execute the query. And one of the most popular ones is the small search box that you will find at the top of the pages. And this is actually delivered using a delegate control, and so you are able to make changes at that level too. So if you look at what administrators have to do regarding administration of the index engine and the search engine, there are a whole bunch of tasks that they need to do. They need to create content sources. They can define crawl rules to, for example, let the index engine go with a different account to that content source. We can include, exclude certain types of resources. They have to manage the crawl schedules. It's much simpler now in MOS 2007. You actually have only two possibilities. Either you do a full crawl or you do an incremental crawl. In the past, we had 4 different ways. It was way too complicated for most administrators, so they have simplified everything. We have the possibility to create search scopes, and that's a very important task that administrators can do. Search scopes are a way to let users kind of limit the results that they are getting back in the browser. So you can, for example, define a search scope that specifies that I want to see only documents, or I want to see only kind of search results coming from that particular content source. So using search scopes, you have the possibility to kind of optimize the way people are searching. Then we have also display groups. So it's one of the tasks will be creating a search scope, but you also have to expose your search scope, and that is done by actually adding the search scope into what we call a display group. And a display group is basically a layer between the search scope and the user interface control that displays the search scopes. And we have what we call scope pickers, which are combo boxes, and each of these scope pickers is actually associated with a display group, and in the display group you specify what kind of scopes need to be visualized. And then creating managed properties. This is also new within MOS, where you actually, as an administrator, you can expose a property, a managed property in the advanced search page, for example, and then have that property mapped to a number of properties that have been crawled. So we have 2 types of properties. We have managed properties and crawled properties. You can have a lot of crawled properties, but in the past it was actually very hard to expose these, because sometimes in one site you have people creating product coder with a C, and in another site it's product coder with a K, or there's a space between product coder. And for administrators, it was kind of a difficult task to expose these types of properties within the search experience. So we have now an additional layer. It involves more work for the administrators, but I'll show you that you can automate this. And then best bets and keywords are another administration task that they can do. They can associate some search results as being kind of a super search result that will be displayed in specific placed within the search center. All right. Now, if you do all of these things, and you do these things in the, you're logging again. You do these administration tasks in the shared service provider administration site. But as I'm not really going to show you all of these administration tasks, but some of them are quite complicated, are quite time-consuming. So what you can do is you can build a number of features or Windows applications or management consoles or whatever that help administrators be more productive. And there's this new search administration object model that you can use for that. There's a new DLL called the Microsoft.Office.Server.Search.dll. And that one gives you a whole bunch of classes that you can use. So there are classes that allow you to play around with content sources. There are classes that allow you to play with the schema. That's pretty much the managed properties, the manage and the crawl properties. Scopes, keywords, ranking. You can play around with the ranking algorithm. Propagation. What is propagation? Propagation is basically the copying of the index file to the search servers. And in MOS 2007, we have continuous propagation. So that means that while the crawler is actually building up the index file, little pieces are already copied to the search centers, so that we have a smaller amount of data that's going over the network, and people can see directly actually things that have been indexed. So the yellow ones are coming out of the search.dll, and in order to access these yellow classes, you need to be able to grab the context of your shared service provider. And the shared service provider is accessible. You can get a reference to the context of your shared service provider. If you are running in the context of a SharePoint site, then you can navigate a couple of layers and then get the reference to the server context. Or you can also, as I will show you, you can also, in a Windows application, kind of grab the context with one line of code. But that server context is coming out of the Microsoft.Office.Server.dll. Okay, so this is actually the code that you need to write to get the context of the shared service provider. As you see, it's not really a lot of work. Yeah. And then you also need to go and grab the reference to the search context. And that is done by making use of the search context entry class. Okay, so once you have the context information, then the fun starts, and you can build exciting types of applications and that crawl, that create things, that compile content sources, lots of things, as I will show you. So let me switch over here. Okay, so before I start, I need to have some data that is going to be indexed. So one of the things that you can use is, of course, the business data catalog to connect to your business data. And this is not a BDC session, but one of the things that you have to do is you have to create what we call an application definition file, where you define the model of your business data, and then you import that within the shared service provider and create actually the objects in the BDC meta data store. Now, if you want to torture yourself, you can create these application definition files in Notepad or in Visual Studio. This is actually a tool that that you can buy. Okay, I have the promo version, so okay. But this is the BDC MetaMon. And what I will do is I will connect to my SQL Server. Okay. And then it grabs me all of the databases. Let me go and just, I'm going to complete it because I already have uploaded and indexed everything. Otherwise, you will sit here and wait for 5 to 10 minutes before all of the data has been indexed. But what you can do here is basically drag and drop your tables. You can make associations. You can edit the entities. And one of the things that you need to have in order for the crawler to be able to index that business data is a method of type ID enumerator. And if you don't have that method as part of your model, then the crawler will not be able to actually index that business data. And what is this method doing? It's actually asking if you execute it, it asks the BDC to connect to my SQL Server and get all of the IDs of the employees. Yeah. So the search, or let's say the index, the crawler, is getting back all of the employee IDs, and then one by one, it's going to go and create a profile page in memory, and it's going to index what is there on the profile page. So the indexer is not going into my SAP or into my SQL Server and doing the indexing. It's actually a very CPU-intensive task that you probably best do on a separate machine and on a separate index server. So you can proceed with that, and then basically tell the BDC MetaMon where, not the beers, where you want to drop the application definition file. And let's do that. And what you get is you get something like this. Probably you have seen these types of files already, and you can then go to your shared service provider over here, where you can go and have a look at the applications that have already been imported. And then from here, you can just import the application definition. And if you didn't make any mistakes, it's going to be quickly done, and all of the objects in the metadata store will be created. Okay, but don't forget, if you want to have your business data crawled, you need to have this, this method of type ID enumerator in your model. Okay, so one of the things that you have to do then is, in order for the crawler to go to that place, is create a content source. This is the place where administrators do these things. Okay, and content sources can be created here using the browser, but what I will do is I will open up a small app. So this is a small app that I'm going to open Visual Studio. Let's do it in Notepad. Just want to show you a couple of the lines of code. But you connect to your search.dll, and there's a namespace called Microsoft.Office.Server.Search.Administration. And namespaces are getting longer and longer in SharePoint. Yeah. But using that, and you can connect to your server context. And then one of the things you can do is you can get an instance of the content clause. And from there on, it's actually a matter of looping over the content sources, working with the properties and the methods that are exposed by the content clause. So once you do that, okay, I can simply go and connect to my shared service provider, get all of the content sources. I can also view all of the start addresses that are associated with a content source. And then I can click on a content source, get the state. I can start a full crawl or an incremental crawl. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new content source. Let's call this the event. Well, let's call it Target Products. Okay, and then I'm going to get the BDC applications. Okay, so the BDC by itself has also an API that you can access. So you can quickly go and ask the BDC, hey, give me all of the applications, execute this method, grab all of the entity information, and I'm just going to use this to create a scope for AdventureWorks products. And I'll create this one. Okay. And then I get an exception because it already exists. Yeah. Okay. Let's go for the beer then. Okay, that one also exists. What did I do? Okay. Let's go for this one. Oh, probably already created it. I'll give it another name, like Target Products number 2. All right. So let's try it one more time. Okay, there it is. So now if I refresh, I have a couple of content sources, as you see. And I can programmatically also start the crawling. Okay. Now that's one thing, creating content sources. A second thing is creating search scopes. So in the browser, administrators have to go here in search settings, and then view scopes. Then they can create their shared search scopes. If you say this 10 times in a row, it's going to be hard. But a shared search scope is one that you define at the level of the shared service provider. And it's available everywhere within your farm, every IS web application that connects to the shared service provider, of course. That's one type of search scope, but you can also go to a site collection and define a local search scope if you want. Okay, so creating search scopes can be done in different ways. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some PowerShell. Let me show you some code. Okay, so this is just a small illustration that, okay, you can have that code, of course, executed in lots of ways, and this is just kind of wrapping it up into something that can be used for people who like PowerShell, and more people are going into that direction, so I had to include it also. But what you have is the possibility to create commandlets. You have to do a couple of things, but basically, if you look at the code is the same as what I had in the Windows application. You have to expose your parameters, but for the rest, that is okay. Then you compile all of these things, you register everything, and then you're able to kind of do this get search scopes. And then I'm going to give my shared service provider. And over here we get all of the scopes, and I can also create a new search scope at search scope. Let's type in shared services again. Let's call this tech at, and let's go to a fictitious www.takeit.com. This is kind of the content source, the URL for the content source. But then you see, the search scope has been created. You can also verify it over here. And okay, it's ready after the next update. What is this update doing? Well, this is something new in MOS 2007. The search scopes have to be compiled, and what we mean with that is that if you start that process, then SharePoint will go into the index file and basically flag all of the items in the index file that belong to that search scope, so that when we actually use the search scope in, for example, the search center, we only get those items out of the index file. This is a different approach than what we had in the past with the previous version. Now, another way of creating search scopes is, of course, using a Windows app. And creating search scopes is pretty simple, but if we go to, for example, our collaboration portal over here, go back. Okay, so search scopes are kind of represented or visualized using these scope pickers, but I can press F5, I can do IS reset, I can reboot my machine. That new search scope is not going to appear here because administrators have to do one more step, and that is going into the site collection where they want to visualize the search scope. And they have to go into the search scopes page. And actually, this is the display group that is used by the scope picker. And I have to flag my new search scope so that it can be picked up by this scope picker. So that's one additional administration task that the administrators have to do. And sometimes there's a little bit of caching. So what I'll do is, nice, you need to close your browsers, but it should appear in a moment. But this is actually not something that a lot of administrators really like. So what we can do is we can create kind of some tool that allows them to create a search scope and immediately also have it displayed in one of the groups. So I can create one. Let's create Takeit2. Let's go for Takeit2.com. I can create a scope. Okay, it needs compile. So let's do this. Update started. And in a while, so now it's actually going here, as we will see if we refresh the page. It's actually trying to update my index file. But you can also go to your site collection. Okay, and let's grab all of the this is normal. There's one site that I use for another demo that is completely secured. But here you see all of the different display groups, and what I can do is I can, for example, click here on, let's say, AdventureWorks employees, and kind of activated it for that search scope. Clicker. When we do that, over here, we should see it popping up. As you see, I have 2 of them now. Okay, but you can create kind of features or PowerShell commandlets that kind of let people do this with one step. Okay, another thing that you can do is you can help administrators in the task of creating managed properties. So managed properties over here are properties that are mapped to crawl properties. And okay, so I have a couple of them, for example, AdventureWorks first name and AdventureWorks last name that are mapped to crawl properties. Here, for example, we have assigned to. This is mapped to assigned to without a space and assigned to with a space. So that's kind of a very useful thing now, the managed property, so that you don't have to worry about consistency in your server SharePoint environment. And creating new managed property is not that difficult. You just give the property a name like myFoo or tagetFoo. And then you define the type, and then you actually add the mapping. I always tell my students that this is probably the worst looking window or web page in SharePoint, but it gives you all of the crawl properties. And once you find your properties, you can kind of map it to the managed property that you are about to create. But again, you can automate this. Okay, so what I can do is I can go over here. Okay, so this is a full sample. Okay, so I can connect to the UTU shared services. All right. I can get my content source, I can get my search scopes, I can also get my managed properties, and I can create a new managed property like AAA-foo, just to have it at the top. And okay, I can map it to, for example, those 2 crawl properties. And all right, okay, this is. See, I have some error checking. All right, this will be better. I have to respect the type, of course. But okay, you can create managed properties like this. Now, how do you expose your managed properties? Well, unfortunately, there's no easy way to expose your managed properties. So what we can do is we can go to the advanced search page. And then on the advanced search page, you have a web part, the advanced search box web part, that has a list box or a combo box. It's called your property picker. And what you can do is you can add your managed property in here. How do you do that? Well, as I said, it's a very ugly way of doing it. Well, this is for administrators. But administrators have to go and modify the web part. And they have this in miscellaneous. Sorry, not in miscellaneous, here in properties. They have this properties property that contains a nice XML file. They have a nice environment where they can edit the XML file. But basically, what you have to do is you have to add property refs, and you have to register your managed property before it's going to be displayed here in the property picker. But again, you can automate this, as I will show you later on. Good. So Let's continue. So the message here is, you have this fantastic object model. If administrators are complaining, you can tell them, we're going to build something for you. Yeah. Next thing is the MOS Search Center. This is where the users are going to execute their search queries. And the Search Center is replacing the search web part that you see at the top of the page, as a home page, for example, of your collaboration portal. And it is more customizable. You can do a lot more things with, of course, a complete site. And you have two types of these sites. You have a Search Center with tabs and one called the Search Center Lite. What is the difference? Search Center Lite is the version of the Search Center that doesn't require the publishing features to be activated within the site collection. You know, there's a big difference between portals and, for example, team sites. In team sites, we don't have the whole content management integration. You can activate it, but by default, it is not there. In a portal, you have the whole content management integration. So that is delivered using a couple of features called the Microsoft Office SharePoint Server Publishing feature, or Publishing Infrastructure feature, or something like that. Yeah. Okay. So if you, for example, get complaints from users that are working in collaboration sites, and they start complaining about, we don't have a proper search experience, what you can do is you can go in that site collection and just create a Search Center Lite, and then that Search Center Lite gives them a better experience, and you can also customize that Search Center Lite. Not as far as with the tabs, but it is a very good option. Now, if you look at the Search Center, I'm going to talk now about the Search Center with tabs, where we have the publishing infrastructure that is going to be used. What you will see is that there are a number of what we call page layouts that define what kind of pages that are part of that Search Center. And out of the box, you get the search main.aspeaks, the search results, people search result, and advanced search layout. These are page layouts, templates, as we used to refer to them in the CMS product, that kind of define what the actual pages are going to look like and what kind of data and functionality that we're going to provide with it. Now, as you know, we like features. So if you want to create new page layouts, you can do that using the browser and SharePoint Designer, but it's not a good option if you want reusability of your page layouts. So what I'm going to show you is a small thing that I'm working on for the book. It actually demonstrates how you can, with one activation of a feature, completely change the Search Center to some kind of new look and feel, and also with new pages. So let me open up that project. All right. Okay, let's do that. All right, so if we go to the Search Center over here, and you can have many search centers, of course, within your site collection. You see that we have actually a tab-based infrastructure, and we actually are working with pages that are coming out of the Pages library. And if you want, you can go here and create additional pages. You probably all know how this goes. You have to select the template, and then kind of create a page based on the template. Now, what you can do is, of course, you can programmatically register new page layouts. And I'm doing this with a feature that I have here. Okay. So what I have is I have my own AdventureWorks advanced search page layout, and also one for search and the search results. And if you create a page layout and you want to provision it using a feature, what you have to do is you have to define your content type. Content types have very nice numbers as IDs. But you define your content type, possibly specific fields that you want to associate with your content type. And then you create a module that is going to take care of putting these 3 page layouts in the master page gallery. And you do this with a module and a file combination. So actually, what we're telling SharePoint here is go into the page layout folder, so this one, and your target is going to be the master page gallery. And then using a file, we tell SharePoint to pick up, in this case, the advanced search, and drop it in the library. Yeah, so if you work with libraries, you have to type Ghostable in library. If you just work with internal folders that you create within the virtual file system of SharePoint, then Ghostable is enough. But you have to set some properties for these page layouts. You actually have to say, hey, the content type is the page layout content type. It's not a master page. And then you define some information to associate the content type that we have created here with the page layout. And you do this by setting the property publishing associated content type. And you define the name of your content type and then the ID, which is the nice one. All right. And then while you're actually provisioning these page layouts, what you can do is you can add web parts in a declarative way. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm setting the all user, using the all users web part camel element. And you can add, for example, what I do here is I add the search box to the adventure word search.aspx. This is an example of how you can do it declaratively. I also have for the other pages, for the page layouts, for the search results and the advanced search, actually create the web parts in Coda when people are activating the feature. So that's over here. Okay, so what I do here is I actually connect to my publishing site and then my publishing web. So this is the Microsoft.SharePoint.Publishing API. I get one of the things that you have to remember if you want to do this is that the Search Center doesn't show all of the page layouts. So when you create site definitions, you can actually tell SharePoint not to show all of the page layouts, but only 1 or 2 or 3 page layouts. So what you have to do is you have to include the new ones that I have as actually part of this set of available page layouts. But once we have the page layouts, what we can do is we can create pages based on these page layouts. And once you have your pages, then you can start, you have to check them in and so on, because this is a publishing site. But then we can start adding web parts to these pages. And this is something that I showed yesterday. You have the Get Limited Web Part Manager. And then what we can do is we can start customizing the different search web parts that are available. OK, so doing this, so now I have this Search Center. So what I can do is I can activate the feature. It's a site collection feature. OK, I have a nice logo. And then we can click Activate. And it's going to make my page layouts available. It's going to create the pages. There's some code that is executed, as you see. But going back to my Search Center, what I have now is I have another tab. Okay, I have new page layouts that people can use. And the tab is connected. The tab, if you want to create new tabs, it's just items in a list that you have to create. And you connect your tab with a search page. So you can, of course, do this also programmatically. But this is my look and feel. I know it's not very spectacular, but I can define what kind of scopes. I can set properties of the scope picker in my code. I can do a query. Let's go for mountain. So I can do a query and have the search result displayed in a different way. OK, I'm going to change this later on. OK. So plenty of things you can really kind of provision in an automatic way. You've seen me working with the web parts. Now, okay, it's not a really good story at this moment regarding the web parts that are involved in delivering the search experience. And the web parts that you have are part of this server.search.dll. Unfortunately, it's pretty much a closed box, a search web part. So they are all sealed. So you cannot kind of create a web part that inherits from, for example, the search core results web part. So you have to, if you want to kind of change the behavior of these web parts, you have to recreate them using your own code. But they do expose many properties that you can set in the tool pane, and you have also programmatic access to these properties. Now, one of the real strange things is also that these web parts, they're actually not connected to each other using the web part connections that you have in SharePoint. They use an internal ID, so at the level of the core results, which is the one that actually executes your query and shows the search results. At that level, you have a query ID, and what you can do is you can add, for example, the paging web part or the statistics web part on the same page and kind of set the query ID property to the same query ID that you have at the level of the core results. And then all of them can communicate with each other. So it's not the normal web part communication infrastructure that is being used. Don't ask me why. Yeah, this is just how it is. But it makes life a little bit more interesting if you want to customize things. So what do you have? You have the search box X. So that's the search box that you saw on the page. It has a scope picker. There are a couple of things you can do here. We have a different version, different flavor of it that sits in another DLL, the Microsoft.SharePoint portal.dll, but that's tuned for doing people search. The most important one is the core results web part. And so that is the one that you probably are going to customize most of the time. What you can do is you can set some flags, you can change some of the configuration options. One thing that you probably are going to use quite often is selected columns. And so I'll show you that there are a number of columns that are returned as part of your search results. But if you create managed properties, you might want to include these managed properties in the search results. And what you need to do is you need to add your managed properties to the selected columns property of your core results web part to make this happen. And then there's also the XSLT. And so one of the cool things now is that you have control over the XSLT, and you can change, replace the XSLT with whatever you want. And you have to respect certain rules, but for the rest, you can kind of optimize the way things are being displayed. And then you have a couple of others that are also possibly added to the pages. Okay. So let me show you a little bit. All right. So what I can do here is I can, well, let me go over here. Let me type in mountain. Okay, so what I can do is I can go and edit the page. And I have all of these. Actually, just a question, who is doing these kinds of things in the room? Oh, yeah, so just because I'm talking here, I'm like, okay, so what we have is we have a couple of web parts. Here is the core results. Here, if we go for modify shared web part, you have all of these options. Yeah. So programmatically, when I provision my search results web part that is on that specific tab, I actually have set already a couple of these properties, so you can do that. But the most important one is the XSLT here. Okay, so in the Inside Moz book, I explain what the XSLT is all about. And we don't have the time to really do this here, but what you can do is you can make some changes. Like, for example, if people are complaining that the bold is not good enough for highlighting the keywords, what you can do is you can kind of change the XSLT. You can say span, style, background color is yellow, span, and you can do this 9 more times. And it can be 9 keywords that are highlighted by this or 10 actually by this XSLT. But when I save this, what? Oh yeah, thank you. Good. So if I save this and I press OK, I actually have now the yellow stuff. Yeah. Okay, but people also want to kind of have this grouped by, maybe grouped by the category of the product. They want to see additional information about the product. So we need to do a little bit more tuning for the XSLT. Now, before we actually have access to these custom metadata that we want to expose in the search results, we need to tell the core results to actually ask these values from the search engine. So what we're going to do is, where is it again? We're going to set a property called selected columns. And again, this is not your best environment to edit this XML, but let me do it anyway. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go over here. I have a couple of managed properties that are related to the Adventure Work products. So actually, it's on the next page. Okay, so I have, for example, product color and product name, product category. So I want to include this in my search results. So what I need to do is, I need to, product category is probably enough. You say product category. Press OK. Okay, so I've included that in the columns XML. Now, this new metadata is, of course, not visualized immediately. You have to also change the XSLT to accomplish this. But if I replace the XSLT with a small snippet, and I can show you that the product category is actually now retrieved. So let's ask the web part not to do any real transformation, just output the raw XML that is kind of sent back by the search engine. Then we can see, if we go here, that we have the all results, and we have the product category, which is not really filled up, but we have the product category which is displayed as part of the search results. Now you can use that within the XSLT to kind of output it in the web part. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do is, I'm going to do a little bit of XSLT. So I'm going to just copy this XML. Now, if you want to do XSLT, you can buy books and you can really start opening Notepad and create your XSLT yourself. But there are tools available that can help you kind of designing your XSLT without too many problems. So what I'm going to do is, this is my sample data. I need to have some sample data. I'm going to save this to my desktop. This is my sample.xml. All right. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to use the SharePoint Designer to create my XSLT. And the SharePoint Designer comes with a very interesting web part called the Data View web part. And what you can do is, you can just, like what I'm going to do, just create a dummy page. It's not going to be published or whatever, but just an ASPX page. I'm going to connect my Data View web part with my sample XML, and I'm going to use the out-of-the-box WYSIWYG functionality to create the XSLT for me, copy and paste the XSLT then in the core results web part. So I'm going to connect All right. So I'm going to just add this new XML. Okay, and let's have a look at it. Okay, so here's the XML. What I can do now is I can say, okay, I want work ID. No, work ID is not interesting. Rank. I want the title. I want something else. Let's go for, well, that's more than enough, I think. Let's go for, I don't have a lot of data for this one here, but I can drag and drop this in my page, and then the data view web part is going to be created. All right, and using the common data view tasks, you can sort and group. So I can, for example, sort on whatever information I have here. Well, let's go for rank. I can group it based on that. I can do the paging. I can do a look and feel. Every one of these columns. All we can do is make this a hyperlink maybe. So I can set the title is going to be a hyperlink. Okay, so then we say jump to URL. This one is changed too. Okay. And then if you are finished with your design of your XSLT, what you can do is go into the code, okay, and just steal that XSLT. And go here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, okay, well, this one here, if it has become a little bit unusable. Okay, let's remove it from the page. All right, contents is one. You know, contents is one. It's kind of allows you to go to your web part maintenance page and remove the guys that are causing a problem. All right, so let me just edit the page and put the web part back on the page. Okay, so you have a lot of these search web or search related web parts. We're going to go for another search core results. Okay, let's put this in the proper place over here. And then let's edit the XSLT. Here we go. See, it's a fun thing to do. Okay, so now if we go and publish this page, we have an updated version of our results. And if I go and type in something else like business, I get my XSLT. Of course, it's not nice at this moment, but you can use that to be a little bit more productive when you're going to customize the XSLT within the Search Center. Okay. Now, what you can also do is you can have, and this is, for example, what Ontolica Search is giving you. You can have the possibility to programmatically communicate with the core results web part and tell it to display any type of, or use any type of XSLT. So you could have, for example, here, things coming out of an XSLT document library that is part of your site, where people can drop in XSLTs, and then kind of select an XSLT and have it kind of activated for this search core results web part. So that's perfectly doable. Okay. All right, so I showed you about the XSLT. Do know that actually your query is executed by a hidden object, and you have no access yourself to that hidden object. And unfortunately, it's not documented at all. And so if you want to kind of give a new user experience, you either work at the level of the XSLTs, or you say, okay, I'm going to execute my query myself using my own web parts and using the two new classes that I'm going to show you in a moment. Yeah. But you yourself communicating with it, it's pretty difficult to do. Yeah. It's going to change, by the way. They're going to relax and make this more open so that you have more possibilities customizing the search center. Yeah. All right. Okay, the custom tabs, there's not really something to say about custom tabs. You just create them in the lists and connect them to the search page you want to have displayed. You saw this. So let's move to the search query object model. So in the past, if you played around with the SharePoint Portal Server 2003, if you wanted to execute a query programmatically, you had to use the query provider clause that was available or is still available at the level of the portal.dll. Now there's a new object model for doing queries programmatically. So, but the process is pretty much the same. So you can formulate your query in two syntaxes, keyword syntax or SQL syntax. Then you can provide it to the query engine. So this can be done using a direct call to the object model or a remote call via search.asmx, the search web service. The query engine is going to accept your query. It's going to internally execute stuff and give you back a result table. And you can filter that based on what you need to display. Maybe you only want to show what we call the relevant results, so the ones that you saw in the search center. Or you maybe are only interested in the search results that are matching the best bets or the keywords. So you decide, but you're going to visualize this to the user in some kind of way. So two syntaxes. There's an easy one, the keyword syntax, plus, minus, include, exclude, and you can work with the properties, the managed properties, and then you can also use scopes in the keyword syntax. But if you want more power and more complex type of queries, then you're going to go for the SQL syntax. For example, if you want to support wildcards searches, what you have to do is, there's no way to actually configure the out-of-the-box mechanism for accepting wildcards. So you will have to create your own search web part that's going to provide this functionality. If you go to the Ontolica site, you can download a free web part that you can plug in that supports this. But the SQL syntax is a lot more powerful. But two new classes, both of them are inheriting from the base class, the query class, and both of them are working in the same way. So the flow, how you have to program against them, is pretty much the same for both of them. It's simply the query is formulated in a different syntax. So let me show you this. So what I have here, it's a very simple app, but okay, we like simple apps to demonstrate certain things. But if we look at the code, okay, so what we do is we're running in a Windows application. We need to grab the context of the shared service provider. Remember, this is important. Sorry. And then we can start creating an instance of the keyword query class. Okay, there is some preparation that you can do. You can set some properties like enable stemming, trim duplicates. You give it the query that needs to be executed. You execute the query, and you get back your result table that you can then process in a certain way. So this is what actually the app is doing. So if I type in, for example, mountain, I'm going to execute, and this is the result that I get back. You don't have the possibility, if you use the keyword syntax or keyword query, to actually decide what the columns are going to be that you want to get back from the search engine. If you want to have that power, then you have to go for the full SQL syntax. You can build nice things. So what I can do, for example, okay, so that's not a lot of stuff here, yeah, but you can say, okay, minus where the rank is, where the work ID is 365. Yeah. So you can, any of these columns can be used, yeah, to filter further the search results. So you can put this into a web part and make it available. Another approach is this one here. Sorry, this one. This is a web part that allows me to do people search. So same thing, the same flow. Let me show you the code. But now the query is executed using the full SQL syntax. Okay, so you have a select statement. You define what the columns are that you want to get back. Big difference with what we had in the past is that the from, there you specify scope, and the scope itself, or the scopes that you want to use, are going to be defined within the where statement. Yeah? But you have a lot of power here. The flow is the same, so you create an instance now of the full text SQL query. You set your properties, you execute, and then you process what is coming back. But if you do that, over here, let me go over here. By the way, all of these search web parts, you can just add them to sites like this. And let me show you where you can quickly realize. Okay, so here's the search core results. Let's do this. Now, the search core results can accept a query from the user, but you can also work with what we call fixed keyword queries. And for example, maybe on that homepage of this site, we want to see, let's say, all of the documents that have this keyword business in it. Yeah. Okay, so what you can do is, and maybe you only want the 5 latest. So I can say results per page, 5, let's make it 3. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say limit 3. I'm going to sort on the modified date. And then we have the result query options. So I'm going to say here at the level of this web part that we're going to not accept a query from the user. It's going to be a fixed query. Let's go for business. Let's go back again for mountain. It doesn't really matter. Mountain. And then you can use your keyword syntax. When you do that, just press OK. It's going to complain a little bit, but when we're going full mode, you're going to see that you have your search results. Yeah. And again, it's really nice because you can kind of have also access to the URL, so you can let people kind of go to the page with a certain query string, accept this, and then use it to drive your search experience. Okay, but there was this other web part that I can add for doing people search. Okay, so people search, and what I can do is I can go for traveling department. Okay, I can look into, and once my user profiles have been indexed, I can just ask you to find me some people from a specific department. And if you do some coding, you can also have the presence information in your HTML output. Yeah, it's pretty simple to do. Go back here. So here I'm actually creating the table. And then over here, if you include this, yeah, and you give it the email of a person, then it gives you the kind of presence information within the page. All right. Now, this code can only run if you have access to the context of SharePoint. So if your coder runs on the box of SharePoint. So if you want to have the search query executed from a remote place, for example, the desktops of your users, or maybe a custom task pane in Outlook or in the Office 2007 products. What you can do is to communicate with the search engine, you can also consume the search.asmx. So the search.asmx allows you to query or formulate your query in the two syntaxes. We have two methods. We have query and query X. It's the same as before. So what's the difference? Query returns you pure XML. Query X returns you a serialized data set so that you can immediately bind it to the UI controls that you have within your application. And do know that the search web service is also a research web service. So what it means is that if you go to the Office environment, in the research pane, you can register the search web service as a research service. So just show you something. All right, so this is just a big app. So what you can do is, if you communicate with the web service, you can ask the web service, dude, are you alive or not alive? Yeah, so you can kind of ping it to see whether you can start executing the query. So it gives me the status success, so that's good. And then I can enter my keyword like mountain, and I can ask to execute this. And so what you do is you call the query web methods, you wrap your query inside what we call a query packet. You get a response packet back. In our case, this is XML, and we can visualize the results. I can also call the query X, and then we have all of the results coming as a serialized data set that we can immediately bind. Yeah. And if you go for the full SQL, and then you have all of the power, you can do free text to your wildcards, but basically you execute it in the same way as before. You also have methods to allow you to get your search scopes, and a method that allows you to get the managed properties. So you can really do kind of nice things. It's very fast. So search.asmx, basically all of the web services are very fast in SharePoint. Unfortunately, they're not that well documented. And hopefully that's getting better for the next version. But the web services are actually quite good. All right. Almost done. Okay, so last topic is custom trimmers. Anybody used custom trimmers already in the real world? I don't see this happening too much, but okay, what's the purpose of a custom trimmer? They call it custom security trimmers, but it can be more than kind of trimming the results based on security information. But it's a DLL that you create. You have to deploy it in a specific way and activate it, as I will show you. And within the DLL, you have a class that implements the iSecurity trimmer interface. And what SharePoint will do is, before it actually gives the search results to the UI control that needs to visualize it, it will load your DLL and pass you all of the URLs of the search results. And then using these URLs, you can do, it's not nice, yeah? It's kind of a very ugly code that you have to write. You get the URL is kind of a big string, and then within the URL you get your grids, like the grid of the list where the item is coming from, and you can use that to do your custom trimming. And then once you have created and compiled it, you need to deploy this into the global assembly cache, and then you have to register your security trimmer. And that's done using STS ADM and the register security trimmer option. Right. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you because I broke something. But let me show you the code. You can follow this example in the Moss book. But here's the code, iSecurity trimmer. So actually what you get is, well, the interface has two methods. The most important one is check access. So SharePoint is going to give you an IList with all of the URLs. What you have to return to SharePoint is a bit array, 0, 1, 1, 0. And so if it's 0, then SharePoint is not going to display this search item. If it's 1, it's going to display it. But what we can do is normally an example where I check in the user profile, where I created a property that administrators can use to kind of exclude lists from search results. So you can connect to your user profile manager. And then this is kind of the ugly thing that you have to do. You have to kind of process this URL, split it up, and then kind of use the information to connect to, via the object model, for example, to lists or libraries or external data sources to do your validation. But once you've done that, you compile, and then you have to activate this. So here's the STS ADM. You have the register security trimmer. You define your shared service provider. You give it an ID, and then the full name. And also, you have to create a crawl rule. So the security trimmer is only going to work for data that is, in my case, coming out of the MOS environment. But once you've done that, it's going to impact the performance, of course. So people will have their results coming a little bit slower. But you can use that mechanism for kind of filtering information, like if you crawl business data, okay, SharePoint is not going to collect the security information, who can see the business data. And so what you can do is you can create a custom security trimmer that, based on the user profile, kind of filters the results that are coming back from the business data catalog. Yeah. Okay. So that was pretty much it. So there's a chapter in the book. If you don't like to buy the book, it's also available on the MSDN. It's a free chapter, fortunately. It was my best chapter, I think, but it's for free. And normally, I say normally, but normally March, April should be a new MS Press book about insights, or it's called Insight Indexing and Search Engine. So everything you need to know about how to programmatically, and also there's a lot of administration stuff in there regarding the index and the search center, or search engine, sorry. Yeah. I also created a lot of visual how-tos. So if you want to redo the demos, you can look at the videos. But for the rest, I hope you learned something. If there are questions, I can answer these questions. We still have a couple of minutes. There's a mic.
Yes. We have a separate database that you can basically say contains metadata about the pages that you want to search. This is basically the type of page that you want to filter out in your search. Mm-hmm. And then I have to have some kind of an input parameter to the security trimmer, or so I was thinking. Is this possible to say I only want pages of a certain type and send this to the security trimmer?
Yeah, so I've done it once for a company, a security trimmer. You have to be aware it needs to be scaled. It needs to perform well. So if you, for every one of these items, you need to go to the database to check whether it can be displayed or not. It's going to hurt the performance. And so, but if you realize this is a perfect mechanism for filtering out results, yes.
Like the search results has a alert me, alert on the search.
Yes.
Can you do that customizable? That means, can you do it programmatically?
Yes. Yeah. So what you can do is you can create your own actions and hook them up with the core results. So alert me is an example, but you can have send me an SMS.
The point was, let's say
by default, search is giving out a result back, yeah?
Yeah.
What I assume is alert is whenever something changes on that content, you'll get an alert something has changed on that specific content search. So I want to create that alert me for a specific programmatically myself.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never not done it yet, but it should be possible in the object model to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
be possible.
Yeah, I've not done this. Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
I've done a lot of coding with Moz, but not everything. Yeah.
You mentioned that there's currently the full crawl and the incremental crawling side in 2007. Is it possible with the object model to extend the crawling process, for example, to implement an event-based crawl, which just on changes in documents incrementally changes only these parts of the index?
Oh, that's a yeah. I see the possibility to do that. Yeah. Yeah. You can create an event handler. You can hook it up with the document content type, yeah, or more specific content types, and then use what you saw in the administration object model to basically start a crawl. I would then also isolate the stuff that I want to crawl into a separate content source. You can say, crawl this content source now.
Okay, but the scope, the maximum limit for the crawl is the content scope, so I cannot say crawl just one document and
No.
add that to the index.
No, that's not possible.
Okay.
No. No. No.
Yeah, I had two questions. What was the URL for the application used to define the XML for the business data catalog?
Well, there's a session on it this week. The guy who created it is Nick Swan and edcmetamon.com.
Okay, and the second question was, when you showed the search core results, can you do the XSL styling in that one in the same way that you could?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so these core results inherit from the same base type as the data view web part and the other web parts that allow for customization. Yeah.
Yeah, you have modified the web parts for the search. How do you deploy that between development staging and production environment?
Features.
Solutions.
Feature solutions. Yeah.
The managed properties you could use to choose what to display in the search result. Is it possible to do a crawl based on only certain properties? So let's say I have a page which has a content type beer, average, and what you had yesterday. Only find the ones with certain.
So not directly, but what you can do is you can create a no, I was thinking another part. No, not directly. No.
The only way would be to actually filter out the result in the rendering process itself.
Yeah.
But that would probably impact performance.
Yeah.
I guess. So.
Yeah. Or just define a search scope. So what you can do is you can create a search scope with a rule, a property rule, where you say include in the search scopes only products that are coming out of this product category. And then in the core results, you can say only show the results that are part of the scope. So we really kind of hard code in the core results that it should only display the results. It's pretty fast because, as I've said, the items are now flagged in the index file, which one belongs to which scope. So, yeah. So what are the best country drinks tonight? A Norwegian one? More questions? Yeah.
One question related to BDC. Okay, I've been playing around BDC and I could find out that it's only to receive data in SharePoint.
Yes.
Is there any way to store data through BDC?
No, BDC is not meant to be used like this.
Yeah.
So if you want to update, then what you do is you create a custom action for your entity and let that custom action jump to your own page. Yeah. And if you go for this tool, Nix1 has a couple of web parts out of the box that you can put on a page to write back changes. Yeah.
Besides the integration into SharePoint with web parts and so on, is the new search server 2008 a superset or subset of the core search engine of SharePoint?
I would go for the superset. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's yeah. I haven't looked at it too much. I only saw some of the docs, but I haven't installed it yet to really play with it. Yeah. But that's kind of the idea of making search kind of something that is going to be more universal, yeah, so that you can use it standalone. Yes, I'm going to take the questions offline.
Take questions in the room.
Okay, so thank you very much. See you tonight or tomorrow.